I would like to start by saying congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Not only for this beautiful film, you also opened in Malaysia just a week ago.
We screened nationwide in Malaysia. Last week start from 18. Now already 9 days. 9 days ago, yeah. We still screen in Malaysia.
But how is that possible? Because of course this is something that is not actually the May 13th incident is not actually part of the official historical record in Malaysia. So how did you pass the censorship?
Yeah, we submit the censorship board this year, start January, and then we got the answer from the censorship board after 6 months, and then but we've 有一个条件就是 sorry, I have to speak in Mandarin. You will be translate for me. Okay. We have to censor 27 cuts and scenes.
27 cuts in the film.
Mute, and then some part will be blurring and also blackout. So, for example, in the last part, we can see dedicated to the victims of 13 May. 1513. These three numbers we have to cover. We cannot show these three numbers 1513.
The numbers themselves inside. Okay, 27 cuts, and it took you 6 months to go through this process. Were you planning when you started making the film on seeking a Malaysian release, or did you think that it was just not going to be possible?
好，我们在送审的时候，当然，其实很多人告诉我们说，能够过审的机会不高，因为在过去有触碰到513事件的电影或者是一些比较敏感题材，通常都不会过关。所以这一次能过得了关，然后对我们来说是一个奇迹，但是整部电影是伤痕累累的。
So during the censorship process for the past 6 months, that a lot of people told us that it will be very, very unlikely that this will pass the censor, because in the past, whenever there's anything related to the May 13th incident, they will never be able to show either the films or other type of creative expressions. So it is almost like a miracle for us to actually get to pass the censor. But having said that, I have to say that this is a film that passed the censor with many scars.
But thank you for sharing the film without the 27 cuts for the New York audience. We really appreciate that. Can you tell us, how did you find out about May 13th? Did you hear it from a family member, or?
对于马来西亚人来说，sorry， 513事件是我们小时候其实不敢提的，因为很多老人家其实都很心里面恐惧。包括每一年的大选的时候，政治人物都会用513事件来恐吓我们。好像大选的时候，我们家里的老人家都会去囤积米粮，因为他们都很怕513事件会发生。到现在还是有一些老人家还是会怕。
So for Malaysians, the incidents happened in May 13, 1969 is something that we dare not to mention from the younger generation, especially seeing how traumatized our either parents or grandparents' generations still very much affected by this particular incident. During general elections for many, many past years since then, the politician would tend to use this as a way to somehow, for their own political interests, to try to say that if you don't vote in certain ways, this will happen again. So for a lot of elderly generations in Malaysia, especially Chinese descendants or the Nyanya descendants, they would actually store foods and rice just in case that if something like this happened again in current time.
Did you set out, I mean, what prompted you to finally tell this story and decide you were going to tell this story in the way that you've told this story?
其实是在2009年，因为我本身是一个就是做社区关怀，甚至是做一些保护一些古迹的一个团体。那我们在2009年，因为麻风病院的某一些地方要拆建，那我们去那边做这些社区关怀，然后过后呢，当地院民告诉我们，后山有一座这个乱葬岗，然后我们去到的时候才发觉到是5130间乱葬岗。然后更让我们惊讶的是，我们看到每一座墓碑都写着by the courtesy of Malaysian government， 也就是说是 Malaysian government 建造这座乱葬岗的，所以我们每一年的纪念日都会在那边等待家属来扫墓，就等了10多年，然后我们本来想拍纪录片的，可是拍不成，因为家属们都不愿意面对镜头，后来我们才决定把它拍成这个所谓的剧情片，就是 feature film， 这就促成了这个版本。
So just by happen chance that I came across this particular mass burial site. At the time in 2009, I was doing certain social movements and also communication advocacy as an activist, trying to preserve certain landmarks, preserve certain old neighborhoods. And there was this initiative to demolish this particular leprosarium used to house all the patients suffering from leprosy. So someone just mentioned that there's this particular mass grave and burial sites right behind the leprosarium. So that's how I came across all the tombs and also the unnamed, unidentified people being buried there. So at the time that I was thinking about doing a documentary and the process of waiting there either around May 13th or during the Qingming or the tomb sweeping festivals, that I will see whether or not there will be family members come to take care of or pay respect and take care of the tombs. And so for 10 years, I've been interviewing these families of the victims or who survived the incidents. And through that, I thought that I wanted to do a documentary film of this particular process and what I had collected. And then I realized that when I reached out to a lot of the family members, they didn't want to be identified or show their face in front of camera. They were still very, very terrified and traumatized by this particular incident. So I had no choice but to transform and to think about a way to present the stories I had collected into a narrative feature film.
And so is the small family that you focus on a kind of composite of many of the stories that you heard, that you collected for so many years from other survivors of the...
我们在10多年里边，大概采集了有14个女性整理出来比较完整的，然后大多数女性都很老了，然后她们都是寻找她们的哥哥啊、姐姐啊，都是家里面的这个亲人。那大多数都是在这个戏当中这个地方叫普渡，然后还有包括在戏院走入戏院之后就消失的一些人。然后我就后来，因为我们本来最初的版本是想拍14个女人扫墓的故事，后来我们找马来西亚本地演员，基本上没有人敢接这部电影。后来我们就没办法，就到台湾去找演员，所以我们从14个变成9个，再变成5个，再变成最后变成2个。马来西亚的第一个演员愿意接的就是刚才在唱这个粤剧的这个 Police。那第2个当然就是台湾的万芳，所以整部电影基本上我们就把14个女人浓缩在这2个女人的身上，然后里边有一些特征，还有包括爸爸娘惹，包括你们丈夫怎么对待她，甚至他们家人怎么样去阻止他们去扫墓等等。
So the 10 years of field research collecting oral histories from these families of the victims who survived the incident, I have more complete records of 14 female subjects that I have pretty comprehensive description of what happened and what they have been through in the past decades. So with these 14, my original plan is actually, by the way, most of the stories that we recount from what happened that day in the city of Purdue and also in the areas around the Majestic Theater. So my original idea is to have 14 female characters for the feature film, and it will happen on the day, one day of how they visited the tomb site and the burial sites and the stories that they have told me will be captured by these 14 characters. But when I'm trying to cast the actresses to play these 14 characters, I realized that a lot of people, especially in Malaysia, whenever I mentioned this particular project, as soon as they heard that this is a film about the May 13 incidents, they start either all communication with me or they just say outright that they won't be able to participate in this because of that they're still afraid that this might ruin their career. So I have to somehow revise the script and cutting the narrative from 14 individuals to 9, and from 9 to 5. And at the end, I only get to cast 2 members who agreed to participate in this particular production. One is Purvi Choi, and she is from Malaysia, and the other one is Wan Fang from Taiwan. So I managed to have a composite of all the stories from these 14 characters and into these 2 individual female characters. And then through them, I'm telling the stories of all those 14 families and their stories that I have captured.
Is it too much to hope, maybe, now that your film is released in Malaysia and will surely spawn a widespread national discussion? Is it too much to hope that you could go back and make your documentary?
I'm still safe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 其实还好，因为我觉得这一次能够上映，然后电检局说，接受了这个27处的删减版，至少可以让513事件第一次在马来西亚通过电影，让大家讨论，所以目前还在上映着，所以现在反而成了另外一个趋势，很多人进去电影院想要去看27处删减的如何。
So I do think that throughout this process, our discussion with the Censorship Bureau, they said that to be able to show this film with 27 cuts, it's already historic because it has never been done before through a film to talk about anything related to May 13 incidents. And I think that through that, not only showing this film, but also have discussions about the film, I do think that there will be more awareness and understanding of what happened that day. And not only that, a lot of audience actually in Malaysia, they will go to the movie theater just trying to figure out which are the 27 cuts being done and how they did it.
And then, 其实这部电影上映之后，其实我们跟家属都有保持联系。其实大家现在在讨论是我们在努力着，就是很多组织。呼吁政府能够保留这个乱葬岗，因为这乱葬岗保留了下来，那接下来关于这513事件的任何调查，我们才会慢慢的促成。所以这部电影其实我们算是迈开了一小步，促成了这件事情。对。
So I am still in touch with all those family members I have interviewed who have experienced this themselves or their family members are the victims of it. And we have decided to really push the movements through a lot of NGOs in Malaysia to preserve the burial sites. This is the first that's been discovered, and we want to make sure that this will be preserved and maybe discover other sites as well. And through that, hopefully in the future, we'll be able to really find the truth and then what actually happens and just some account account of what transpired that day. So we are still very hopeful, and this probably the silver lining of this is that because of this film, because the process of the going through the censorship, now we have a lot of values in terms of the voice to preserve this particular burial site.
Say, film can change the world. I think he deserves a round of applause for this. I know I'm dominating this discussion, but obviously I have to ask one more question. Your aesthetic choices are extraordinary, of course, not only visually and with the Chinese opera and so forth, but also the soundtrack where we do not see the violence taking place, but we hear it, which is something even worse. How did you make those choices not to show it, for example?
其实，在年轻的时候，如果拍这部电影的话，我可能会拍出来。可是我觉得过了40岁，做了这么多的口述之后，当时4个女人说的故事越来越多，我其实不忍心把这些比较残忍的画面拍出来。
So if I were to make this film when I'm younger, I might take a different approach and in terms of the cruelties and the violence of what happened that day. Now I'm more mature, I'm in my 40s, and I have a different approach to this because of the listening to those stories from these 14 female individuals. And I really think that this, by taking a different approach, the approach that I'm taking now is actually a better way to tell the stories, their stories.
Okay, thank you. All right, is it possible to get house lights up a little so we can pass a mic around? Are there, gosh, I see a hand here. Yes, let's take this.
Do I need it right?
Do we, yes.
Thanks a lot. Hi, my name is Nina Tao, and thank you so much for making this movie. I grew up in Jakarta in the 1970s. So, you brought back the fear that we felt during election year. So, it was very powerful. And thank you for making the movie. I didn't want to remember all those things, but I did. I know it's not about Indonesia, but for the diaspora, it's a very personal thing. There's a lot of trauma that we feel. So, thank you very much. And I also have a very good question, which was, throughout the making of the movie, did you face obstacles from the government, per se, because they knew you were making that movie, or from quasi-government entities as in your process?
我2017年拍这个版本的短片的时候，我还在马来西亚国家广播电台工作，然后拍完这部短片之后，他们也知道了，所以我隔了2个月，我就被停职。然后，当然有幸的是，我的第一部短片就进了釜山影展，所以算是不幸中的大幸。
So the predecessor of this feature film was actually a short film, also a feature film, and also a narrative film. It was done in 2017. At the time, I was still working for the national radio station in Malaysia. And because of the fact that they have found out that I had made this particular short film, after 2 months since the finish of the film.
Thank you. I don't think this movie can be made in Indonesia today. The closest that we got was Josh Oppenheimer's the act of killing and the look of silence. But thank you very much.
我补充一点，就是我在去年的时候，我以一个印尼的这个暴动的故事拍了一部短片，然后参与了台湾有一部10部导演的作品当中，那将会在下个月8月在台湾上映，然后我里边就用了印尼人这个暴动的故事作为一个主角。希望大家可能到时候可以看到。对，
非常期待，谢谢。
So last year I was involved in a project actually drawing inspiration from the Indonesian riots to make a short films, and this is one of the 10 films that will be shown next month in August. in Taiwan, and then hopefully you will have the chance to see that film. How I actually make a short film through the perspective of the Indonesian riot.
There's a film called Tales of Taipei.
Hills of Taipei. Tales of Taipei. Okay.
My name is Sharon, and I spoke with you.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you so much for making this film. I was so happy to see this film on the list. As soon as I saw it, I knew I had to see it.
You're from Malaysia.
Yes. So I actually have 2 questions.
Could we maybe just have one question and then let's see if there's any more questions, but let's start with one. Yeah.
So the first one, the main question is about your research. Was your research based purely on interviews with family members of survivors?
Yeah.
And or were you able to find any historical records at all?
OK， 就是14个女人都是我们口述，然后包括了他们提供的一些资料，比如说电影当中的一些投票歌，还有里边的这个当时候戒严的广播，然后还包括里边的道具，还有里边烧的一些东西，都是我跟这个家属里边找到的。所以电影当中其实有很多的道具，声音的一些来源都是当时候都是真的。
So the 14 female subjects that I interviewed for oral history said we not only capture the stories they told through the interviews, we also rely on certain artifacts, including the voting election songs that have been played at the time in 1969. The certain props that we used also came from these families of the survivors and also the family of the victims. So the songs of yes, the martial law, when they announced the martial law, the radio broadcast, that's also from the victim's family.
Okay, time for one last question, and I can't see anything. Hi.
Hello, I hold the mic. Hi, Jia. 您好，我是马来西亚人。I'm Malaysian too, and I'm an actor based in New York. So I have something very small, particular. I am impressed by the performance of all the actors, but especially the Taiwanese actors, because I know there are linguistic differences that occurs when amid the diaspora. I'm just wondering if Wan Fang or any of the Taiwanese actors speaking Hokkien, if they got any sort of dialect coaching before in the process.
Yeah, I teach myself.
All right, that's good.
That's my job. So I have to teach her through the Zoom every day. Yeah, for 3 months. Yeah.
Okay, actually, one more question. We can take one more. Oh gosh, I can't see. So yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jing Wang. I'm also a doc filmmaker, and was really impressed by you able to make this beautiful but very important film touch so many people's heart. I'm Chinese, but I think all the Asian countries, we share the same pain as our government to try to protect and hurt us individually. So my question would be, I'm really curious to learn how you incorporate 窦娥六月雪 the Peking opera into your storytelling and have this parallel of a reality and also the opera kind of mirror the experience of the characters. Thank you.
其实我们并不是创造那个六月雪，反而是因为我们在做 oral history 的时候呢，那个社区在那天晚上的确在演着六月雪窦娥冤。因为刚好是有这个酬神戏嘛，就是有一个表演，所以他们演了一半就演不下去了。所以我们在做这个社区的这个口述的时候，发觉到原来当天真的有这场戏在演着，所以就变成了我们把这场戏结合了另外一个这个 Malay Annals， 因为那 Malay Annals 的那书写的日期是1612年5月13号。所以我本身也是因为都有学这个马来文学的，所以我有中国文学的这个底子，也有马来文学的底子， 所以我就是一个文学的爱好者，跟社区艺术，所以我本身也是唱大戏的，因为我本身有学越剧跟潮剧，所以就综合了这些我懂的东西，然后就有了这部电影。
So the Snowstorm in June as a Cantonese opera production and number. I didn't wrote it. I didn't write it. This is not my own creation. This is actually been written a long time ago in Yuan Dynasty by Guang Hanqing, and it's very much about the stories of the injustice to Dou. So that is completely from the oral histories I collected from these families that they told us that this particular number actually was played on the day of May 13 in 1969. And they couldn't finish it, and they played halfway through this particular play or Cantonese opera, and they have to stop. So I simply just not only honor their stories and incorporate that into my film in combination with another legends and stories being told in the Malay Annals. And this is written just coincidentally also on May 13 by the authors in 1612. And so I see this as a storytelling from two different perspectives and two different literary sources. One is from China, one is from Malaysia. And for myself, I am not only a lover of literatures, I'm also a social activist and doing community advocacy. And I also delve into the art of Cantonese operas and other forms of opera as well. So it is something that's very natural for me to try to tell the story, combining all these different elements from different sources.
There's so much more to say, and Mr. Chong has agreed to talk to you out in the hallway if you would like to continue there. We are so sorry we've run out of time. Thank you so much, Chong Keat Aun, for this beautiful, beautiful film and for being here in New York. Thank you.